Hello everyone. So in this video we're going to talk about purchasing, entering in your purchases, and retailing all of your invoices. So before doing that, we have to do a few basic settings in order to get that set up properly. First is setting up categories in CStorePro according to the way you want them to be set up. So to do that, be sure to go to Groceries, Settings. And now in Settings you have categories that you can set up, and you can assign departments into that category. So if you can see here, I have beer set up as my category with beer 6-pack department and beer department within it. And then I have cigarettes and then cigarette department within it. Non-taxable, taxable, and then for soda, I have coffee drinks, iced tea, and soda within that. Now, if you want to create a category, you want to click on this category icon to create categories. So I'm going to create one over here for tobacco. Select if it's taxable or non-taxable and what my target margin for this category should be. So for tobacco, I'm going to say my margin should be 40%. Now within tobacco, if I want to add an additional department, let's say for example non-chewing or chewing tobacco, I'll click over here and I'll select that I want to put it into the tobacco category and I want to put in chewing and add it, right? So now I have chewing tobacco as part of this. So the way this concept works is basically your departments roll up into a category. So if you ever want to see, okay, my target margins were 40%, but I actually made 35% in this category, now you can dig down deeper into the department to figure out which department you're not making enough in, and from there you can dig into the items to figure out which items you need to increase your categories for, retailing for. So once this is done, be sure to go into the POS data and settings and make sure that you have set your departments to be dumped into the right CStorePro reporting department. If you recall, when we were first doing the setup on the first video to get the Pricebook training, we had talked about setting up these departments and making sure that these daily report mappings are mapped to the right category. So if you want, you can click over here and make sure that all your sodas are going into the soda category. Now that you've created that soda category, tobacco is going into the tobacco category, etc. So once that's done, your category settings are pretty much ready to go. Now the next step we want to do here is we basically want to set up your vendors. So to do that, you can go to Groceries, Purchasing, Vendors. And now you have a list of all the vendors. CStorePro usually has the most common vendors already defined for you. But if you don't have some of these vendors, you can always click on the delete icon to delete that vendor. And if you want to add a new vendor, you can always click on this plus icon to add a vendor. Now when adding a vendor, you want to specify the name of the vendor. So in this case, I'll just say BNG Grocery. And now over here you have two options. One option is to retail at the item level, meaning you want to track item level purchases for this vendor so you can see how much you're buying and how much you're selling. A good example of this is tracking item level for your main grocery suppliers such as Core-Mark or McLean or HT Hackney. Or for like people that you want to keep item level tracking for, such as beers. Now if you want to set up preset margins, you can set up preset margins saying that every time I buy something from BNG Grocery, for example, let's say only thing I buy from BNG Grocery is my tobacco, and I really don't want to track my tobacco at the item level because it's not a highly likely to be stolen item. I'll go ahead and specify my margins for this vendor. So every time I buy something from this vendor, the system will automatically retail it at this margin. So for example, if I were to set this at 60%, if I bought something for $100, the system would automatically retail it for about $250 or so to get the margins up. Now the next step is to basically assign an EDI file. So this only makes sense obviously if you're doing item level inventory. So if I specify that this is an item level retailing in vendor, I can specify which EDI file I'm getting from this vendor. So I have multiple options to choose from here. We cover pretty much most of them. If you don't see your vendor on this list over here, feel free to call us at 281-265-2299 and we can get that vendor added into this database. So for this one, I'll just select Gamma just for the sake of demonstration purposes. And over here, this vendor code is completely optional. This allows you to tie in this vendor into your global vendor so that you can see at a central level how much you're purchasing from each vendor and how much you're selling for each vendor. You go ahead and add the vendor when you're done. Now, if you notice over here, you can delete any vendors you want. You can edit vendors if you want. You can look at, vendor item details such as what you're buying from each vendor and all that stuff, what your purchase packs are, what your cost is for particular items for each vendor, etc. So for example, if I go into ANA distribution, I'll see that I'm buying this item from this vendor. These are my margins for this item. So once the vendors are all set up in the system, you're ready to go and enter in your first purchase. So to create purchases, CStorePro has multiple options as well, 3 basic options. Like most common option that's used for our customers is actually through this basic task dashboard, where you simply go under grocery and enter in your purchases. Now when you click on create purchases, the screen will automatically show up with the current date. So you specify which vendor you're buying from, how you're paying that vendor, whether it's check, EFT, or it's on credit, consignment, or paid by cash. So for example, if I select check, I'll have to specify the check number. If I select EFT, all I need to worry about is the bank. And if I select unpaid or on credit, I don't have to worry about anything. So I'll go in here and I'll basically say, I'm going to buy this purchase and it's going to be a $48 purchase. Let's just say. And invoice number is optional, but I can enter in any invoice number here and go ahead and add this invoice. Now, if I want to create another purchase while I'm here, I can click on this little icon and create another purchase, and the screen will show back up again, where I'll go in here and I'll select community coffee. I'll say it's EFT from this bank account, and it's a $30 purchase. And then once I'm done, I'll just uncheck this and add this invoice in. Now that screen disappears. Now you noticed a couple of things here. When I created the AAA distributor purchase, it's set to unretail because I had specified when I was setting up the vendor that I wanted to do this at the item level. For community coffee, I had specified that I want to do it at 60% margin. So when I bought something for $30, it automatically retailed it at $75 for me. So I don't have to worry about retailing that invoice. That makes sense because coffee is hard to track at the item level because of the different sizes, the spillage, the wastage, rebrewing of the coffee, etc. Right? And plus all the ingredients that go into it. So that's pretty much how you enter in the purchases. The other ways to enter in purchases is obviously going into grocery, purchases, invoices, which will take you to this screen right here, as well as you can go into Pricebook, purchases, and invoices, which will basically bring you into the same screen again here as well. Over here you have multiple options. You can filter by date, vendor, minimum, maximum amount, source if it was done from the store or deli, and if it's retailed or unretailed. And then you can obviously search by cash only, credit, check, and EFT, all the unpaid invoices as well as all the unretailed invoices. Now, if you want to retail this invoice, you just simply click on this little retail icon here and start entering in the item that you're buying. Now, if you have existing items for this vendor, you'll see it over here. If you want to add a new item, let's say if you have a scan code, you can scan the item over here, or you can click on this plus icon, find the item by name in your store, select the item, and then specify how many units per case you're getting, what the cost is for that item, if you're getting any discounts or any rebates for that item, and simply go ahead and add that item into here and then specify how much quantity you're getting. Now you notice my net cost for this item when I retail it is showing that my net cost is $24 so far. I actually paid $48, so the system will not let me finish retailing until this invoice paid amount matches the actual payment amount that I physically cut out from the store. If I hit finish, the system will basically say from unretailed to partially retailed because the numbers haven't added up yet. So I'll go back in here. And now if I made a mistake, let's say I realized that, hey, I didn't get actually 2, I got 4. I can always go over here to the right, click on edit, and enter in the quantity as 4. And then update. Now both the numbers are basically matching in the system. If you realize one more thing here, if you want to delete it, you can delete this invoice from here as well, or you can sort and find all the items where your cost has changed, in the order in which was received, the margins, etc. Once you're done, you simply just hit finish and you're done with this invoice. One more option that we obviously have, if you're getting an electronic data invoice file from your vendor, you can obviously click on EDI file and upload that EDI file. Simply download it from your email to a location on your desktop and then just find that file and upload it into the system. Once you're done, you hit finish and you notice now that the invoice has been retailed. It basically shows retailed and my unretailed goes to empty. That's one way of doing these. There's another way of doing this as well, which is becoming more and more popular, and that's through our iPhone app. So let's show you an example here. I'm going to launch the iPhone app on my screen, so you'll be able to see my screen here shortly. So here you go. This is my iPhone. So I'll log you into the app here. Now when you log into the app, you click on the top left side, click on scan deliveries and manage purchases. Now this option allows you to actually track the invoices directly while you're actually getting them into your store. So your employee can simply stand in front of that invoice when the vendor brings it in and actually enter it in right there and then off the spot. This eliminates the cost of getting, additional hardware. You don't have to no longer spend $1,000 to get a handheld scanner that can do this functionality for you. Click on add new invoice if you want to add, and you notice at the bottom it says there's no unretailed invoices for this store. So I'll click on add new invoice. Again, I'll go in here and I'll just select AAA distributor, or in this case, let's say I'll select Coca-Cola bottling. I'll enter in the amount for my invoice. So I'll say $24, or let's say in this case, I'll just say $48. I'll say I paid with check. Check number was 1456. And my invoice number is optional, but I'll just enter it in here as something and add the delivery. Now when I add the delivery, the system automatically took me to the screen where I can now start retelling my invoices. So as the vendor is standing in front of me, I can simply say launch my camera, scan the item, enter in how many quantity I'm getting for this item. And because this item is the first time that I'm getting this item for the first time for this vendor, the system automatically pulled up the name, the description, everything like that. All you have to do is specify the department you want to add this item to, the taxes you want to apply for this item, and if you want to apply it to a particular price group, age restrictions, or food stampable, and then simply update this item. Now you notice at the bottom it shows me that the total amount for this item was $24. I've scanned one item so far, 2 quantity I've received, and the total cost of $24. If I scan the next item, and enter in the quantity and add item, now this time the system tells me, oops, wait, I haven't had this item yet in my store. So now for this particular item, I'll have to specify the name. So I'll just say Coke, or Coke test. Units per case 24. My case cost, I'll just say $24 as well. I'm not getting any discounts or rebate, and I'm gonna put this into my soda department. Make it taxable. And I'm gonna say this is actually food stampable, and add this item. And you realize that I made a mistake. I forgot to enter in the cost because this item is new to my store. I will have to specify a cost. So for this one, I'll say $129. Done, and update. Now that I've done that, you see at the bottom it says $24, and then obviously it says $48. So my total cost that I actually retailed versus what I actually paid, which is at the top, both match. Now I can just go back and you'll realize that that invoice now disappears from here. I want to show you one more thing as well. I'm going to take that same invoice again for Coca-Cola, enter in the amount here for, let's just say $96, and I'll leave it as EFT, and I'll leave the invoice number blank, and I'll go ahead and add this delivery. You notice that there's an option at the bottom that says continuous scan. This is a very good option for vendors like Frito-Lay or the ones that bring 1Z, 2Z items that are not bringing items in bulk. You also notice that there's a return option over here as well. So if you're returning any items, you can return that item over here. Now let's say if I enable continuous scan, all I have to do is simply take the item, check that box, and now it'll scan one item at a time. So I'll just pick it up, scanned it. Now the camera shows up again. I scan the next item. Camera shows up again. Scan the next item. Next item. And now if I'm done at the end of it, I just hit cancel. Now, one thing I did want to show you is if the item is new to your store or new for this vendor, if you have continuous scan enabled and you take a picture of that item, the system will basically show up a window that says, hey, this item is new, in which case you can go ahead and enter in all the information like we talked about earlier. And if I want to cancel out, I can just cancel out of this. And once I'm done, again, my numbers are a little bit off. So let's say I want to get the invoice to match, but if I go back, the system will say that this invoice is still sitting here because it hasn't been fully finalized yet. Go back in here. I'll edit this quantity and I'll just change it from 1 to 5. Update. Now it matches. If I go back in here, the invoice disappears from the system. That's pretty much it for the setting up your purchasing side of it. In the next video, we'll actually talk about how to track your inventory, manage your inventory, and look at various reports available in CStorePro. In the meantime, if you have any questions or need additional help, please don't hesitate to contact CStorePro. You can go to our training center. You can go to our help center. You can get on the phone and give us a call at 281-265-2299. Thanks, guys. Look forward to you guys watching the next video.